let's get straight into it. Please join me in welcoming back to the stage Gerry Campbell.
All right, so we're going to have a panel to talk about how strategy, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So I've got to my left Shane Riddle, CIO of National Heart Foundation. To his left is Scott Holmes, Innovation and Strategy Manager at REA Group. We've got Phil Lees, who is with, he's Insights Manager at Intrepid Travel. And then all the way at the end, we have Scott Maxworthy, who is Head of Digital at the Cronulla Sharks, which I'm told is a rugby team. So really excited to be up here, really excited to talk to you. We had a little bit of time to prep when we got on some calls over the last couple of weeks and was really interested to hear what they have to say. So I hope you're excited as well to hear the conversation around strategy and culture. So I want to just start by moving down the line, one to the next, just an introduction of who you are, what you do, and a couple sentences.
Yeah, well, thanks, Gerry. I have the great pleasure of working for the National Heart Foundation. I'm the Chief Information Officer. Heart disease and heart-related issues is the biggest killer of Australians. 51 people die every day due to that. So to be able to work for an organisation that changes lives is a great privilege.
Awesome. Good stuff.
Scott Holmes.
Yeah.
I've been with the REA Group for 20 years, so I know 20's come up a lot, but I've been at the one place for 20 years. And just to put that in perspective, the internet was running at 14.4 kilobytes when I started, so the average photo took about 2.5 minutes to download. So we talk about data, but the internet was the way we moved data, and at 14.4 kilobytes, it didn't go very fast. My role at REA now is to look at problems that we have in the industry or at REA and try and design products and services for our customers, whether they're residential, developer or media customers.
I'm Phil Lees. I'm Insights Manager at Intrepid Group. We're the world's largest sustainable experience-rich travel company. Currently carry about 350,000 passengers. My role there is I run our UX, analytics, SEO and web product teams. So I've got a fairly broad remit.
My name's Scott Maxworthy. I'm Head of Digital at the Cronulla Sharks. I'm a Cronulla Sharks tragic. 50 years of age, 50 years before we won a grand final. And my primary role is helping the Sharks move from historically a bricks and mortar product-driven company into a customer-centred digital savvy organisation.
Awesome, great. Thanks, good intros. So wonderful panel, really excited about this conversation. I think the thing that is most interesting to talk about at the very beginning is where did we start? What was the impetus? I told a little bit when I talked about how DVDs were dying. We had to create a streaming service since it was black and white. There was survival on the line. Not everybody's in the same situation. Not every company goes through the same things. Why don't we just, guys, take a shot and we'll just go down the line, then we'll do popcorn after that. But you want to take a quick run?
Yeah, well, I walked in the door at the Heart Foundation just over 2 years ago, and as soon as I walked in the door, they said, we need a data warehouse. And just to put some context around that, the Heart Foundation back then was operating as a federated model. So each state and a national company were their own business entity. Each business entity had their own CEO and own board. And the data and the way we engaged with customers reflected our business model. It was very disparate. Mm-hmm. So they were quite keen on bringing all of this together as within a data warehouse. And my take on that was, well, yeah, I can introduce technology, but is that going to solve the problem? What is your problem that you're trying to solve? So my take on that was I asked them to just give me a little bit of time to start understanding the why and work with organisations, so then I can not only look at the technology, but also look at the process and culture and address all three of those to try and get a solution in.
Mm-hmm. I can't wait to get back to you on the next question as well. We'll move on, Scott.
I suppose for us, we've obviously been around for quite a while, and there was data in a lot of different places, in a lot of different platforms, and it wasn't stitched together. And about 3 years ago, I started pushing the envelope to say, well, what could you do with that data? Our customers, 10,000 agents, about 2,000 developers, they wanted insights back about how the market was performing. And they thought we were just hanging on to it, but we actually couldn't unlock it. And that was one of the problems. So, the data that we collect, we needed to be able to use in a better format and open up those pipes so that we could build products. And at REA, we're sort of a lines of business. So, you've got the residential, the commercial, the media, the developer, which is the property development industry, and each one has their own product teams. So we had to make sure that we were giving each of those product teams the data that they needed to produce products for their clients. And it wasn't really in a great usable format. So we've built a product recently called Real Demand, which unlocks supply and demand metrics. So because we have so many people coming to REA, that insight understands how popular a suburb is, or how many people are looking at that. Is a suburb in a decline, or is it, is there more property than people looking, or vice versa? So just starting to unlock some of those data sets can give real insights back into the industry and also to the consumers. And it was really around that, making sure that data is going to be it is already very important, but it's getting it in real time and in the format that you need to be able to deliver it back to a number of different people, both on a consumer or a customer level.
Yeah, I think our story is actually really similar. Business has been around for about 30 years, which means there's about a decade of Excel spreadsheets with customer data in it. And an idea that if we could bring all of this together, there'd be more marketing efficiency and we could make customers happier because we knew, what they were booking and where they wanted to go in the future. To use the turtle metaphor, I think it was a process of cutting up a lot of turtles and then stitching back together another turtle. I don't think it was even that pretty. But in the end, and I think we'll probably talk about this a bit more, the outcomes certainly were that marketing efficiency side, but I think in terms of the whole organisational structure, things really did change as a result of that. That was very much unanticipated.
We're essentially an entertainment product, so the value within sport is associated with TV rights, which is historically a mass media model. But as we know, as we move to digital, the data becomes the real asset. And so we have a lifelong customer from the day you're born to the day you pass away, and it's a generational piece. So it's very much about understanding who that fan is across the 32 different customer touch points we have, and whether that's football club, which is merchandise, membership, corporate hospitality, sponsorship through to your leagues club, which is gaming, food and beverage. So it's admittedly, like everyone else, pulling all that data, understanding who that customer is, being relevant, but also creating an asset value, which at the end of the day is going to be valuable to our business partners. The sports bet of this world is how do we deliver sports bet marketing relevant to an audience who's the consumer of that type of service, and not wasting or delivering messages to someone who's not into gaming. Mm-hmm. And that's the end goal where we need to get to.
Interesting. So as I listen to each of you talk, they're underlying, except for you, Shane, is probably, and correct me, there's a notion of revenue for the three of you, and there's a notion of impact in general.
Yeah. Definitely.
So as things began, as you dug in, and now we'll just kind of move to whoever feels like moved to speak up. As you began the data journey, as you jumped in and started to do these things, what were the expectations of output? How easy, and remember this panel is about culture, right? So how easy was it to begin to get the gears moving and to get people to understand why a data change was a necessity? Who wants to jump in?
Well,
to my left.
I'll take the first one. From an organisation point of view, we were ready to make a change. We're having our 60th birthday next year, so we've been around for a while. The organisation realised that the world was changing. Traditional ways to fundraise were declining, and we need to understand who we engage with. One of the things that we did do through the process of understanding our why was trying to define who is our customer. Yep. We came up with 52 unique definitions of customer for Heart Foundation. So then trying to work through that with the organisation and getting them on board to have this change has been quite a journey.
So on one side it's revenue for the three of them, and for you it's contributions, or is it not that clear?
Well, yeah, contributions is a big part. 82% of our revenue is through donation, so it's a big part. But that's only one customer set.
I see.
We also we advocate to state and federal government. We inform councils about planning to ensure that there's healthy and active areas that people can participate in. We work with clinicians to create standards. We've got a support area with our helpline where heart attack survivors, we help them through that support process. So there's a huge mix of customer base.
Cool.
Yeah, I think for us it was all about when we started building our roadmaps and what products we wanted to deliver. Data was at the core of it. We needed to get access to this data, and we're getting access to some of it, but not all of it, and not in the right formats. So you can imagine there's about 35,000 listings that go live just in the for sale section, and they're moving every day, whether the price is going up or down on new photos. So the data is very fluid. It changes so rapidly. So how do you build a product on top of that type of platform? And then it's not just always revenue, there's also the consumer side. So what intel can we give the consumers to make better choices on properties to rent, properties to buy, values of properties and things like that. So we have two sides of the equation. We have the revenue, so build a product either to make something easier or as a revenue stream, and also to give market intelligence back to consumers. That's just really one part of it. There's many other facets that we do, but going forward, everything that we sort of do, where can I get the data? How can I populate this product that we've built with the intel that we've already got collected?
Yeah, right.
That was the catalyst.
Yeah, I think for us, one of the other big changes was that there's a much bigger competitive pressure out there in the market. The expectation around travel and booking travel has just grown so immensely on the internet. And when you start looking at people who aren't direct competitors to us, like an Airbnb, it's much, much easier process than what we had at that time. And that was really driving customers to expect a lot more out of what we were building.
Look, we're pretty much the same in that regards. It's all about being relevant and being where customers were, and those eyeballs were in social or online. So we needed to be in there, understand who they were, and then build out. When we looked at the tech, find one part of the business that was going to get the low-lying fruit in terms of return, and that was our membership area. So we invested the tech into that space, built a business case, showed the board level, here's the return on investment, which helped then go and fund a whole lot of other initiatives. But the initial driver was, make cash and show how it's creating value for the business.
Yeah.
Then you can go and do a whole lot of other nice things.
Yeah. Interesting. So was that pretty much, did all of you each have objectives to meet, relatively clear objectives, so that you could get kind of green lit to move to stages? Or is it just keep cranking and make sure good things happen? Is it clear or is it not clear?
It took a while for us, for instance. We had to keep pushing, to try and get the data, and then what was the platform and how can we engage with it? What was the connectors?
Yep.
We have a thing called partner program where we send out all the stats at an agency level to the CRM providers. What is the connector for there? How often do we have to send it? What sort of data do we have to give them? Is it views? Obviously we send them leads, but views, time on site. We only send them a small amount now. What are we going to send them in the future?
Yep.
So it all started unraveling probably about 2 years ago, that people wanted to know what was going on.
Interesting. So transparency.
Correct.
Yeah. Cool.
So yeah, for us it was a bit of a struggle trying to put a dollar amount, because ours was changing the way people go about their lifestyle and the impact that we're having. So there was a key amount of measurement that we needed to introduce. So in the solution that we put forward, we need to be able to build that measurement in to ensure that we can report back that change and shift.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that you talked about as we prepped for this was that you had, and I believe it was you set up 5 stages of success, where
Correct.
Each stage.
Yeah.
Could you explain that? Because I think it's fascinating, because what you did was basically create your own success and your own momentum.
Yeah, so from the onset, we identified that there was going to be some key areas that we needed to work through. So the way I approached it with the board was I created gateways that I would prove my outcomes at that point in time, to allow me to move to the next gateway. So I divided it into 5 key areas. One was very much about discovery. Then the second was understanding the customer and who is our customer. The third was understanding about our processes, getting down into the weeds and working out what it was that we need as a solution. The fourth stage was very much about the implementation. We're just at the end of that fourth stage now. And the fifth stage, which we're now entering, is very much about the enhancement. What did we learn through this fourth stage, and how can we now go and enhance that solution?
Yeah. Awesome. So we've talked about data silos a lot today, and we've talked about data silos from the organizational perspective. We talked about it from the practical perspective, where data just lives, various places it's tough to get access to. How many, Phil, I'll pick on you. How do data silos impact the travel business? How does it impact your world?
A lot of it is really about how we pass things across different ways people book. I think one of the really interesting things that I guess everyone knows now is that almost everyone that is booking our product is visiting our website, regardless of how they book it. They're either visiting our website, calling us, visiting our website, going into a physical travel agent and booking, and doing that through the whole customer journey. Yeah. What we didn't know is how many people were coming out that other end. We'd just see website visits and web bookings, and we didn't have any way of linking all of that behaviour together. What's changed for us is we're beginning to link a lot more of that. So anything that we own, we're absolutely linking together. And anything that's coming in through a travel agent, we're starting to get much, much better at linking that as well. There was obviously a huge amount of our business comes through travel agents, and there's not really a great drive to, take business away from there, because for a lot of those customers, that's the best customer experience for them. They have that personal relationship with their agent. We have a good relationship with that agent, and they still want to keep booking through there.
Sure.
But obviously, we want to grow our direct business as well. And once we know that, we can take that business through a phone call or online, then we can start optimizing a lot better around that.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So you've got a little bit of a channel conflict even.
Yeah, absolutely.
So data may actually be difficult to get from the travel agencies over to you because they don't want to. Yeah. They don't want you to take their customer.
Yes, and often, the only thing we have from that is we have a booking from an agency of this one person. We won't know their name until they arrive on the ground. And so trying to stitch that back together from a booking that was made, might have been made 5 months ago, and they arrive on the ground, in 5 months' time. Yeah. Stitching that back to a series of web behaviours becomes very, very difficult.
That's an interesting thing. I think most businesses that I've ever dealt with seem to have some form of channel conflict, and especially as you have more and more visibility in the data, that drives the data actually highlights or illuminates or brings to the front that. What about Scott? What about you for data silos and how you've dealt with that?
We don't transact the way that that Intrepid does, so it's a little bit different to that. Our data is more about making sure that we deliver to our customers leads and insights for those leads. That's one area. And then the media business, it could be click-through ratios and actions and leads. So we're sort of pushing out a lot of that data back into either the consumer or our customers. So from that point of view, we don't really have that.
Moves pretty freely.
Yeah, it's more about unlocking all those data sets. Unlocking real time, so we haven't got that. We're probably 24 hours behind at the moment, so whatever happens on our site today, we find out about it tomorrow, so we want to unlock that. We want to unlock what a person's done for the last 90 days on our site, how many times. So we've got it in bits and pieces, but not in a nice fluid way. And one of our things that we want to aim for probably for next year is if we give a lead to a client, I call it's a vanilla lead. If you want another one, if you want a chocolate lead, we don't have it. We just send you the lead, the email, the phone number, and their details. Whereas what we want to do is start lead scoring. So how many times do they look at these properties? Do they look at all the same properties? Are they looking at the same suburb? Are they looking at the same price bracket? How often are they going in there? What's the frequency? And try and build a score around that so that when we deliver that lead to an agent or a developer, there's actually, this client rates at an 800, this one's at 600, you should ring this one before you ring that one, and try and get them to engage with the consumers a lot quicker.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. It makes sense how different your business is. In fact, what's interesting is the contrast between the two. Yep. What about you, Scott? Is your contrast even more?
Yeah, I suppose we have a couple, obviously, and one is in that lead scoring. So we track user visitor behaviour, if they're known or unknown, and then if they're known, go through, they hit the membership page but they don't become a member, then it activates the call centre to ring up and see what their history's been and ring up and say, oh, look, I saw you on the membership page, you dropped off, and there's conversion. But we also do that across, for example, merchandise, where they'll go and buy something from the shop, but they'll spend $300. But if they're a member, they're entitled to 10% off.
Yeah.
And so there's the opportunity to push a membership message saying, become a member for $30, whatever it is, and you've got that saving forevermore. So there's that cross-selling opportunity there as well.
Do you have any cultural resistance as you move the data from the different pieces of the organization? Is there data lives here, data lives there, and because we're talking a little bit about culture here, right? Is there any cultural challenge to that?
I think
or
we've
is it all
overcome
technical?
that for people to understand the value of that aggregated customer view.
Yep.
And how it's easy to sell to someone you already know than trying to sell to someone new. And obviously there's just, again, focusing on the customer and what's of interest to the customer, putting them in the centre and saying, look, yes, I'm happy to get my discount.
Yeah. Shane, what about you? What about the data silos and then the culture around them?
Yeah, there's always the challenge, particularly with our organisation. We have health customers and then we have fundraising customers. So at what point is it appropriate to ask a health customer about a fundraising activity? So there's some contention there. And
is that a loaded topic? Is that kind of a hard thing to bring
it's
up?
something we still haven't resolved. It's ever changing. It's something that we need to, and every circumstance is a little bit different. What we've tried to do in our approach is to take that financial lens of it off our customers and look at a lifetime lens. We engage with children as young as 5 and 6 with our jump rope program, and then right at the other end of the scale, when they leave their estate to us and things like that. So what we want to do is be appropriate and have our product and service that's appropriate to them at that appropriate time within that life journey.
Very cool. So shifting gears a little bit, let's talk about the culture of how things change over time. And I tend to see things as, and you mentioned, the awareness of understanding how things come together. Is there kind of an awakening that takes place, or have you seen that it's more of a, and by an awakening it would be, aha, I get why we should be doing this. I get how the pieces fit together. I get how data fits in the overall journey. Is there an event around people becoming aware, or are we all kind of destined to grind away, earn our next step? You're smiling, Scott. You get the ball.
Oh, look, I think it's you've got to find people within your organisation who will champion the cause, and that's both from a board level down to your staff. And if you find out who they are, and our role is to help guide and educate and lift, but build good case studies and sell internally and help champion the champions. And that's how we've tried to go about doing that.
So you're saying it's a grind?
It's a grind.
Phil?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for us was going after the low-hanging fruit first, that we could build a case study around something that was going to be relatively easy to achieve and also would have a really big revenue impact quickly. Once you can have a few runs on the board, everyone starts trusting you a lot more to say, yes, everything you're saying is right. We can start experimenting a lot more and start down that path of developing experiments rather than just building MVP and minimum features all the time.
So you're a grind hoping to be an event someday.
Yeah, so once you get past that initial grind, it's much less grinding.
Yeah, I think for us, we're a little bit different. It's well and truly on the roadmap. So our data team's gone from 23 to 60, over 60, and there's more people coming into the team. And their job is to open up the data sets. And then what you do with that data is then you design a product or an initiative around it. Obviously, you'll look at the Privacy Act, you've got to get it through legal. But their job is to make sure that we can access the data when we need to.
Yeah.
So there's no grind anymore. It's a flat chat to make sure that we can
Yeah. I get the impression you're post-grind. Right, everything.
It's taken a while,
You've got
but
things
yes.
set up. You're kind of clicking along.
Yeah, we definitely are.
Took a while.
It took a couple of years.
20.
Yeah. No, not quite 20, but sort of the whole data play came about 2-3 years ago. So we started getting to the end where we needed to design more products that needed the data.
Yep.
So we sort of got all the low-hanging fruit with classifieds and the media products. And we went, right, we're sitting on all this data. What do we do with it? Oh, we can't get access to it.
Yep.
And that's where it all started.
Yep.
Yeah, it's about proving concepts and, again, trialing. Once you get a couple of wins on the board,
Yep.
and you can demonstrate, and particularly for our health people, they're the ones that are struggling. They don't see a dollar return, and they don't need to. They want to see a change in behaviour. So we've got to understand the business problem and then make sure that we're fitting the solution around and addressing that problem.
Yeah. So I want to summarize this because this feels like a really, really important point. Very different businesses, very different operations, very different stages of operation, and in each case, it's not an event. The awareness, the awakening around data, the awareness of how the organization could change. When I spoke earlier, I said there are things out there that this changes everything, and the response internally in an organization, it sounds like the echo back is, even though the world may be having one of those this changes everything experiences, you got to stick to your knitting. Selling the vision has to be accompanied with a lot of proof, a lot of grind, and it takes a lot of commitment to get there. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah. From our point of view, a data culture can't be imposed.
Yeah.
We've got to build that up.
That makes sense.
And we're slowly getting the momentum now with across the organisation that they're seeing benefit, particularly, and again, I keep going back to health area because that's our biggest challenge, getting them across the line and showing that using the technology, we can actually make change, make lifestyle change,
Yeah.
and have an impact.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest issues for us, I guess, is that it empowers very different people in an organisation. That you go from us being very, very product-centric, and the people who are closest to the product are generally the most empowered, to the people who are closest to the customers and with the best customer knowledge suddenly have a lot more power because they have control over that data and the ability to analyse it. And that really shifts a lot of the conversations across the whole organisation.
It can lock things up too, right? If people are used to making decisions without data, and all of a sudden there's a new piece of information. So we have just around 8 minutes left, and one of the things that I thought was interesting, we've got such a range again of people up here in roles. One of the things that was really interesting to me was to talk about the motivation. Why do this commitment? Why take the grind on? Why be willing to do that? And I think for each of you, it was an interesting and different response. So just 2 minutes on why you do what you do, and why do you love data, and why is it making an impact for you?
Well, for me and for the Heart Foundation, it's bringing about that change of lifestyle, improving people's lives. So if we can use data to do that, why not? Yeah.
And you're saving lives.
Yeah, saving lives as well.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
For us, it's our consumers are expecting it. They want more information about the property industry and what's happening in their local area. So that's from a consumer point of view. And our customers are demanding more data. They want to know what's happening on a day-to-day basis with the properties they've got, how many people, time on site, and segments that they might be targeting. So data also gives us a massive opportunity when we can start to predict and predict quite accurately, who's bought a house, and we don't know who that person is, but we can follow them.
Yep.
So when we can start to look at actions on a site and then be able to go, we think the probability is around 70% of that person bought that house. That unlocks other revenue opportunities, whether it's in the furniture industry or the finance industry or whatever. So there's monetary gains by making sure that your data's in a really nice position that you can build products off, and then our customers expect it, and our consumers want it. They want to know more.
So that sounds purely about market liquidity. There's an opportunity to provide market liquidity, and you get to profit along the way.
If you can provide a product that no one else can provide, because you've got a lot of people coming to a portal that has so many people, that the intent is massive.
Yep. Scale. Awesome. Phil?
Yeah, I'd say similarly, competitive pressure. It's something that consumers expect a lot more. Secondly, it's really fun. I really enjoy it, and so I quite like the grind. But also, travel is one of those life-changing experiences, and so just seeing the joy people get out of our product is something that really drives us to make it better and to make it more suitable for everyone that's trying to book.
Fantastic.
So I did a little exercise during the week to look at the content we produced over the year to see the content that engaged most with the audience. And of the top 5 were nothing to do with football. And there were stories such as Andrew Fafita gave his boots to a young kid who had leukemia, who throughout the whole game had to lie down, but at the end of the game, he had enough energy to go down to the sheds at the end of the game, and Andrew Fafita gave him his boots. So that generated about 350,000 video views, and it was seen all through national television. So that's the power of sport, to engage audiences and broaden the perspective on what we do. And at the end of the day, what we do is create lifetime moments. And we've got that ability to influence and change behaviour, and we deeply respect that.
And sports brings people together. brings families
Absolutely, it
together.
builds relationships between families, between friends and community.
Fantastic. Well, so we're about out of time. My comment on this, and I feel really privileged to get the chance to talk to these guys about what they do, because to me, the big why behind why we do all of this is actually really important. It's the motivation when things get rough. It's the motivation when there are people to educate and bring them along. It's the reason why we sit down and lead our teams and educate our executives and all of those things. So to be able to tie that together and use the context of culture, to me, is interesting, because that's the way it's reflected. How do people handle each other when there's a conflict? How do people handle each other when there's a win? Those are the things that are interesting. I really appreciate having a chance to talk about these things with all four of you and the opportunity to do this up here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.